Greetings and welcome back to UC Central Live. I'm Jim Fallows here with Don Wright of Esri, and we are delighted to have joining us another eminent guest. This is Jeffrey Sachs, who is joining us from a remote location. He's the president of the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network and director of the Center for Sustainable Development at Columbia University. So the three of us are going to talk both about the events the presentations we've heard for the last 2 days and the general situation of GIS in the world, a time where sustainability in all its manifestations is our shared challenge. Jeffrey Sachs, let me begin with you, since you are joining the audience anew. What's the main message you would give to an audience of GIS professionals from around the world who are concerned with sustainability about this moment in history and what their responsibility and their opportunity is?
Well, we need you, and we need you to help train us, the rest of humanity, to be using GIS tools. I can tell you, when I trained as an economist a few decades ago, GIS didn't exist in its modern form. So for economists, countries are arrayed in alphabetical order, I'm afraid. We are not so good at spatial analysis. But I spend every day of my life these days working on sustainable development, on the energy transformation, on biodiversity conservation, on ocean preservation, as you've been listening, on COVID and how to fight pandemics. And as you know, everything has a crucial spatial dimension. Everything about how cities will evolve, about how new energy systems will work, about how our Zoom world, or our Skype world in this case, will change our dynamics and our mobility. And we can't even begin to understand this without GIS. It's a fundamental tool, and we need it absolutely for the success in the challenges that we're facing.
I think that's an important message and a welcome one to members of this audience. And before asking you, Dawn, about your reactions, I want to have one other follow-up to Jeffrey Sachs. As you mentioned, you've been on the front lines of working with international officials on a lot of these crucial sustainability issues. What is the clearest or most inspiring or most important example you have seen of where a GIS perspective on the world has made a difference in the way leaders, either public or private, have been able to address sustainability challenges?
Everything is now on maps, and everything is spatially oriented, the economic analysis. So there's not one thing, James. It's pervasive. But the truth is, while there's a vast community that has been built worldwide, the policy community, by and large, still doesn't have this as a fundamental tool. From my point of view, we need every child not only to learn a spreadsheet, but to learn how to make maps and use maps and do geographic analysis. So I view this as just a fundamental part of the toolkit for anything that we want to do.
Great. Thank you very much. Dawn Wright, let me ask you now, and with a background of what Jeffrey Sachs has been saying about the fundamental importance of GIS as a tool, we've heard 4 different but connected presentations in these past 2 hours about sustainability and GIS. What struck you either about the wholeness of these presentations or about anything distinctive, one or the other, you'd like to say?
Yes, I think they were all connected by the idea of togetherness, that we are in this together. And so along the lines of what Jeffrey has just told us about the pervasiveness of geographic technology, geographic perspective, everything is connected. I think what these 4 keynotes said is that we all must do this together. Paul Salopek, his examples were just fantastic in terms of all of these communities, all of these different cultures that he walked through, and how much they were connected to him and he to them, even though there was so much difference. Secretary Crowfoot made that point as well, that we have diverse communities in California, but these we are working in a bottom-up sense. And Dr. Tabrone made the same point, and I love what she said about people that create solutions together will sustain those solutions together. And Enrique Sala made that point as well. In fact, he said, as Jeffrey said, that he needs us. We need you. We need we need your data. We need your perspectives. So it was this idea of togetherness. We are not alone in this, and we are all working on these solutions together.
And there was kind of togetherness to the whole package too. They were different, but they were, it was e pluribus unum in terms of messaging. Jeffrey, given your extensive involvement with businesses around the world in trying to change their practices, I wanted to ask you about the implications of one of the presentations we just saw by Enrique Sala, who was saying that declaring certain marine preserves around the world had actually helped commercial fishermen. The commercial fishing industry, if certain areas of the ocean were protected, there were more fish overall. And the argument was that this was something that would, in a sense, not pay for itself, but have commercial benefits. What have you seen in general on this argument that sustainability will, quote, pay for itself, unquote, or that how you can enlist commercial businesses in the cause?
Well, there is, of course, the famous, justly famous concept of the tragedy of the commons, which is that in fishing, for example, if it's just completely open to whoever wants to catch fish, you destroy the fishery. And fisheries all over the world have been destroyed because they have been treated as a commons and face the tragedy of the commons. By putting some kind of framework, often a tradable quota system, you protect the fishery and you raise the income so you don't destroy the livelihoods. I'm involved right now in Africa, in topics of conservation, especially around endangered species. Communities that are able to get together and helped to get together to protect endangered species end up with not only more productive agriculture because of the interplay of biodiversity, but also with ecotourism and with many, many other benefits. And so this is a general phenomenon that working with nature in a sustainable manner requires some awareness of what sustainability means in a particular ecosystem. But if you ignore those basic facts, you end up with the complete degradation, and everybody loses in the end. We're seeing, of course, the main rainforest regions of the world, just like the fisheries, all near tipping points right now. The Amazon basin is in a very difficult moment. I've been working with about 100 of the top scientists of the Amazon basin who have been telling me this absolutely is at the edge of a tipping point where the Amazon could collapse into savanna. It could lose many of the core ecosystem functions. And by the way, it's all done with maps. It has to be. It's done with remote sensing, with satellite reading, and then with the analytics to understand how the ecosystem functions is a spatial dynamic analytics that lives on a GIS platform. So there's no way to understand the Amazon or the Congo Basin or the Indonesian rainforest other than through maps.
So, Jeff, I'm going to use what you just said about the Amazon as a prelude to a question to Don and then come back to you as well. Don, before the plenaries, we were discussing this balance between alarm and despair, between awareness of how late things are in the Amazon or the Antarctic and other natural regions, and it being already too late to do anything about them. As you've reflected on those issues after hearing these 4 plenaries, what's the further message you would like to give the GIS community of how to think about this balance between being alarmed without despairing?
I think one really important message is that if we continue to organize our data and to share our data, but also to organize our people and our discussions And one tool for doing that is ArcGIS Hub. So we had some wonderful examples from Secretary Crowfoot and the California Nature Hub, Dr. Tabrone's hub that our colleague Adam Pfister demoed. This is the idea of organization and preparation precedes the action, and then the action gives us hope because we are starting, we are doing. And as I mentioned before with the example of the boulder being pushed up the hill from my colleague Catherine Hayhoe, if you've got millions of hands on that boulder, we're getting it up towards the top of the hill, and we do have hope. So there is time. I think one of the big messages, even with the crisis that the Amazon is in and that the ocean is in, all of these crises that we are discussing this week, is that there is still time, but we must act now.
Yeah. And Jeffrey Sachs, because this is so fundamental an issue, I'm going to ask you that question too. Internationally, you've been dealing with issues of equity and sustainability and access for a very long time. How do you find it effective to talk to people you deal with on this balance between alarm and despair, of recognizing lateness, but that it's not, the sun has not always set? What have you found to be an effective message to get these themes across?
I have to tell you the truth. I don't know if you can see that, but it's a map. Oop, let me see if I can get that. It's a map of the world. There we go. Oh, well, it's a little bit hard for me to get the right point on the camera, but it's a map that just came from my colleague James Hansen, who is one of the world's leading climate scientists, and it's showing the temperature anomalies for the month of June worldwide, because he leads the most rigorous science on this. And the truth is, he's a gentle genius, and he scares the wits out of me because he's been telling me for 20 years, it's bad, it's getting worse. And the map, which I can't quite show you, shows these intense anomalies over the western U.S., which we know all about, in northern Siberia. It's a pretty frightening map. And he's pointing out, by the way, that we're having this very severe weather in a La Nina year, which is normally a global cool effect. When ENSO turns into El Nino, we're really going to spike. So the truth is, we can't sugarcoat our situation. It's bad. We've lost a lot of time. What I know from my end of this, which is the more economics and listening to the technologists, the engineers, there are so many solutions. We don't lack for solutions. I can tell you as a macroeconomist, we don't lack for the money to do it. We don't, this is not going to even break the bank. We've just not found our way politically and our way to cooperate globally. And when Dawn was talking about this sense of oneness, if we can create that sense, if we can look at a world map and understand that we are really connected, and that resonates with me working all over the world. I've never found a place where I don't feel this is home, and this is people that I feel completely connected with anywhere, across cultures, religions. Once you have that experience, we are in one world together. We absolutely have the tools and the technology to solve these problems, but it is late in the day, and it's not an accident that we're seeing 50-degree-Celsius weather right now in the West Coast in the United States. It's horrifying because we've delayed. So I'm here in Europe right now speaking to political leaders about moving faster, how to move faster. I've been with the experts in Europe all day and feeling quite good about the dynamic that is underway with the European Green Deal and the amount of political energy. And of course, I think President Biden is pushing very hard and very effectively to help the United States to move forward. And if we can get the whole world around this, then no need for despair. but it's late. Let's get moving.
No.
Yeah.
So I have a final question for each of you. We have a few minutes left here. It's one we could discuss for hours, but I'd like to discuss it for a minute or two. A theme that has run through user conferences for years, and about which I'll have the privilege of talking later today with Jack Dangermond and Gary Nell of National Geographic, is the moral and ethical responsibilities and the civic responsibilities of people who are mastering this new technology. Maps will become an increasingly powerful way of telling the stories in which the world operates, presenting the pictures through which people understand their challenges, their opportunities, and the people who are creating those maps have so much power in their hands. This is like people who are the pioneers of television 60 years ago, wondering what kind of tool this would be. Any new technology has this tremendous potential to create and to destroy. Don, as a scientist and an information scientist and a citizen, what would you tell to your colleagues here about their moral responsibility for their work?
I would tell them that it is a moral responsibility now. It's gone beyond just doing your science and staying in your lane. I loved what Dr. Enrique Sala said about spending all of these years in the academy writing the obituary for the ocean or for the earth without a solution or without a prescription, but knowing what that prescription is. So we must act, we must share now. And so it is, especially because there's such urgency now, as Jeffrey described with this crazy heat dome that is over Canada and the Pacific Northwest. I mean, we are seeing this every single day. So how can you not act now? How can you not speak out? How can you not share your maps? Share that, share your maps and your data, and partner.
And to follow up with one quick question before turning to Jeffrey for the wrap up, how can the creators of this technology guard against its being misused the way other information technology has been in the last decade?
Yes, that is a critical question. We have to be very determined and very careful in terms of indeed teaching about this technology, best practices for it. There's one word that we've been talking about for years, which is metadata. That's one part of it, but the other part of it is the proper way to work with the technology through workflows, best practices in terms of workflows.
Right. So Jeffrey Sachs, in Europe, you have now 1 minute to bring the message home on moral and civic responsibility to an international audience of the people who are creating our geographic awareness of Earth. I give it to you, Jeffrey Sachs.
I want to start by thanking Esri and National Geographic, because we have seen that when these tools are taken up by young people, kids in junior high, young people in high school, the stories they tell are so compelling. They go home and they tell their parents, they tell their teachers, they tell the mayor, they get us moving. Together, Esri and the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network that I'm honored to lead under the auspices of the UN Secretary General and National Geographic, hosted a competition of young people with story maps and with geographic systems. It was mind-blowing, inspiring, exciting. The only hard part was everyone was a winner, so we couldn't even, how can you even choose? But I'm so excited about the basic idea of education for sustainable development with GIS in the hands of young people all over the world, because then we're really going to get this done.